So 5 years ago, there was a reason why I started this movement. And the truth then is the truth now. That we need to champion our narrative. We need to champion the truth around what we do and who we are.
There's a sweet spot with a gun. You know, too heavy and it's a burden to walk with. Too light and you whipping it.
Why is the project so important to the hunting community?
I think it's not only important. I think it's vital. I think it's just in time.
It's like snakes and ladders. You guys are climbing the ladder, and then somebody does something stupid, and you just slide down.
That is such an amazing analogy, snakes and ladders.
Yeah.
You know, ivory, in my opinion, was the plastic of its age. Okay.
The expenses are going up. It goes a long way with families. We have families that do need it.
Let me close this door because I have a little wiener dog. What? Are you laughing because I said wiener?
I'm really glad you finished the sentence out. I'm sorry, I heard the first half. What are we doing here today?
You're telling the whole world. Squish all the mosquitoes that you have.
You want some Aerogard?
I don't need Aerogard.
No.
I'm an African.
With malaria.
That's had malaria, exactly. You got all these mosquitoes here because you got all this water here, Pud.
Good.
You ever done a podcast before, Pud?
No.
Essentially, I'm breaking your cherry.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Pud, that's a very interesting first name. That is your first name, or is that a nickname?
That's a nickname. But it's one that I've worn for all of my adult life. My first boss gave me that name, and half the people that I know only know me as Pud.
Last name, Pud?
Howard.
Pud Howard.
Yep.
Sale, Victoria. Home, born and raised here.
Born and raised in Sale, yes. Yep.
And Sale is southeast Victoria?
Basically, yeah. Eastern Victoria.
What's it known for?
Oil and gas, raft base, farming, strong dairy industry, but that's probably the three majors, yeah.
Very rural community.
Yeah.
Rural country.
Yep, rural country.
Hunting a part of this rural country?
Very much so. Duck hunting's been very much part of the Sale or the Gippsland area, the Gippsland Lakes. We're basically on the western end of the Gippsland Lakes. The Gippsland Lakes being a very important drought habitat for birds, water birds. So there's always been very good hunting.
There's always good
here.
water here.
Yeah, always got water. Yeah.
Always got water, and that's what people were saying. Like when you talk about duck hunting and ducks here in Australia, no, not Australia, in Victoria, it's where the water is.
Yeah, I suppose Sale has always been one of the meccas. There's a few meccas for duck hunting in Victoria. One is Bull Oak.
Where's Bull Oak?
Bull Oak's at Donald in the Western District, Kerrang up on the north, on the Murray, and Sale. They're probably the three meccas in the duck hunting fraternity.
And there's no really other duck hunting culture here in Australia, really, is there?
There is. Like South Australia has a bit. New South Wales was always quite strong, but Victoria's definitely the strongest. I suppose Tasmania's quite strong as well, but Victoria's always been the strongest. Victoria, when New South Wales had a managed season, a lot of Victorians went to New South Wales to hunt ducks. There was certain wetlands up there which were, again, meccas in their own right.
And what has New South Wales lost, like 86% of its wetlands since they banned hunting?
Well, I've never seen the figures, but that wouldn't surprise me that they've lost a lot of wetlands because there's very little interest in wetlands. That I've noted over the years that wetlands, when I first started, wetlands were regarded as a wasteland.
Yeah.
Right? Farmers got tax benefits to drain them.
Yeah, same as America. There was like a program called the Swamp Buster program. You busted your swamp. You got actually money from the government to drain your swamp.
Drain your swamp, yeah.
Yeah.
But now, wetlands, they're realising the importance and, what you would normally in the past call a puddle now has become a wetland, but they are an important, integral part of the environment.
You've been you've been duck hunting here since you can remember?
Yep, since I can remember. Probably the first duck hunting I ever did was I was about 15.
And here, were you hunting here on the Heart?
Not until the Heart. Once I got to having my own driver's license, yes, I hunted the Heart. At that stage, it was private ownership.
So your dad would obviously...
No, my dad was not a hunter at all.
Really?
It come from my... the interest stemmed from my uncle, Herb Guy, the late Herb Guy, who was one of the...
Was that your dad's brother?
No.
Or mum's brother?
No. married to Dad's sister.
Okay.
Herb Guy, in his own right, was a very good bike rider, famous bike rider.
Motorbike?
No, push bikes.
Push bikes.
But he had a passion for wetlands, and he was instrumental, one of the instrumental few that set up the Field and Game Association with a public meeting here in Sale in 1958.
Wow.
And Herb was extremely passionate about wetlands and birds and water birds, and he would spend every spare moment he had, particularly later in life, working to protect these wetlands in the Sale area.
Pud, you know what you sound like, right?
What?
You are Herb.
Maybe.
You just described an individual later in life whose sole mission is to protect wetlands in and around Sale.
Yeah.
You just talked about yourself.
Yeah, maybe. I don't see it as...
Think about it.
Yeah, well, probably.
Think about it. What was Herb doing back then? Herb was establishing Field and Game Australia.
Yep. And then the interesting thing with Herb, Herb went outside, away from the organisation to a degree. He was always a member, but he went away from the organisation and involvement in the organisation because they weren't, how should I say, rebellious is what Herb was. Herb would...
He was a doer.
He was a doer, and he was a fighter. Like, he would not accept no for an answer, and he would fight and lobby. And fortunately, his daughters have passed a lot of his writings and paperwork onto me and his photographs. And reading some of that as I have, the passion in his writing was phenomenal. I'm not a very good writer, but he was. And he would...
What was he passionate about?
Well, just water and the wetlands. Water and wetlands and birds, and the fact that what we had to do to maintain them. Even this Heart Morass, I found some photos that he'd taken back in the 70s of a massive ibis rookery that took up on the reeds down here. And I think it was overflow from the Dow's Morass rookery. And on the back of the photo is... I think the figure is 3,000 birds. He's written on the back of it, and he's got all photographs. There'd be very few people even knew about it now that it even happened, but his recordings of it are there, and I'm hanging on to it till I go, and hopefully I'll hand it on to the Field and Game to look after, because there's history there,
When did Herb pass?
Oh, I'm no good with dates. He's been probably gone now for possibly 20 years.
Did Herb die before you purchased the first parcel of the Heart Morass?
Yes, he did.
Was he aware of... Because obviously it didn't just happen like that, right? Was he aware that you were heading in that direction?
Well, that was always a dream of the association, was to own our own wetlands to work on. That was always there, but in the early days we were fortunate that when the government set up the State Game Reserve system, which was funded out of our licence money, at the request of the Field and Game, the then Bolte government saw fit to set up a statutory fund called the Wetlands Purchase Fund, which was funded by licence money that we'd asked for.
So duck hunters here in Victoria... You paid a license fee and you had a duck stamp program, right?
That come later on, but that was part of the license fee.
And you had set it up in a way that, hey, we're going to pay money to do the thing that we love, but we want you to put that money aside.
Absolutely. That's what the government at our request, at the Field and Game Association's request,
At the hunter's request.
the hunter's request, that we have a licence fee set up, and that licence fee go to a wetland purchase fund. And that wetlands, when they were purchased, were then classified as state game reserves, which could be hunted on. So in some cases, there was existing Crown reserves, water reserves. They would be declared a state game reserve, and then they added to that by buying freehold land as it came on the market around those reserves. And that increased the size of the reserves. The classic ones here is Dowds, Lake Coleman.
So that was all funded by Field and Game.
By hunters.
By licenses.
Hunters' license money,
Yeah.
yeah.
The sort of train of thought that I was going down is, if you had to like put yourself in Herb's shoes today, what would he say about this?
Oh, he would be quite impressed, amazed. And if he was here and fit and able, he would be down here working all the time. That's what Herb would have been doing. He was at his best when he had the shorts on, in the water with a shovel or whatever, doing something. He loved it, or photographing. I can always remember I got roped into one day, giving him a hand. He wanted to photograph some birds down at Heart Morass, and I had to cart this step ladder in so he could get up high enough to take these photos, because I was younger and supposedly fitter. Or in the early days in Lake Coleman, there was a channel interconnecting Lake Coleman to Lake Wellington, and Lake Coleman was polluted by water coming from then Latrobe Valley Water and Sewerage Board, this effluent farm, and he wanted this interconnection to clean this place up. And he would go down every weekend. He'd always take 2 shovels, one for him, and if anybody else turned up, they were given a shovel. Right? So, if you happen to be out in the lake wandering around having a look, and Herb
he
was
recruited
there,
you.
Here's your shovel, get in, and start digging. And he dug these 2 channels out. They were existing channels, and he just deepened them and widened them enough until they started flowing. And if you went near him, you got a job, because he always had 2 shovels. And he would be there. I've got a photo of him standing in one of the channels, in his shorts. That's what he worked in. He rarely put waders on,
And so, as a young man, you were sort of incorporated into Field and Game Australia, right? That was like the thing to do. Like, uncle, that's what he does. I like what my uncle does.
Yeah, and I was also into the shooting. I worked in a sports store which had quite a reasonable firearms department. That's where I worked from when I left school. So I was always passionate about fire. I had an interest in firearms, that's for sure. And it was partly Herb that gave me the early interest, for sure, as a young child, and then got involved in the Field and Game and all sorts of things, and had a few other people in the organisation at that time took me under their wing. And the main thing they taught me, I still remember one chap who's now departed, Barry Lees, and Barry always taught me. Barry Lees and a chap by the name of Bob Simmons. If you're going to hunt, you've got to conserve. You must conserve if you're going to hunt. They drummed that into me, that if you're going to hunt, you must conserve. You cannot just kill something and expect everything else to regenerate. You must conserve. They drove that into me all the time. And, that's... And I was silly enough, I suppose, at the young age where most were chasing women or whatever, they would drag me off to meetings. And I would be going to meetings in Melbourne and places like that, involving the organisation.
It's funny, I don't know, you didn't know this and I told you a little bit about it in the boat today when we were together. As we were waiting for the other boat, I was looking at you and I was looking around, and in my brain I was like, who's coming after Pud? Like, and then you stopped and I was videoing and you're like, oh, I don't know if you should video this, but without you even knowing what I was thinking, you said, I'm worried about who's next.
Yeah, well, it does. It does worry me that somebody's got to I suppose I feel young, but the age isn't. I'm not going to be here forever, and who will take it up with a passion? And I've said to Lucas Cook, the CEO, and David Anderson, our chairman, as far as any land purchases, wetland purchases, unless you've got somebody passionate there to drive it, won't work. Won't work. It's not just going to happen itself. You've got to have a driver.
What do you think has been? You've been in this game for a long time. What's been the driver constantly?
Stupidity, I think. Look, there's a.
I'll say something controversial, and then I want you to correct me. Somebody would say, "Oh, you're just a duck hunter." I'll say, "We won't call her by your nickname for her." I'll say Georgie Purcell will say, he's passionate about it because he loves to kill ducks every single year.
Well, I do. I enjoy duck hunting. I enjoy getting out there. I enjoy eating them. But equally, as I was taught, if you're going to take up this pursuit, you must conserve. You must conserve. The best way to conserve is habitat. Get the habitat right, and the animals come along, right? Whether it be ducks or whatever, all the birds. With this place, yes, we're duck hunters, but all the rest of the bird species come along for the ride. The swans, even the dryland birds, the rosellas and the cockies that have been squawking here, they all come along for a ride with it. And yes, I am a hunter. I make no bones about that. I enjoy hunting. I enjoy the outdoor life, the camaraderie with the friends that we've been out with today. It's all part of life. And yes, I enjoy duck hunting, but I enjoy conserving them. I enjoy conservation. It worries me what's going to happen in this Gippsland area.
Dang, cockatoos.
Yeah.
This is what happens when you do a podcast in the middle of the Australian bush.
Yeah.
You get all the Australian crazies, which are the cockatoos, who decided to just come right on top of the tree that we are. Unbelievable. Lucas, chase them away.
Lucas, can you grab my dog, please? Over there.
She's right there by the truck.
Well, I'm just worried about her tangling with a tiger snake, that's all.
It's one of the most venomous snakes in Australia.
One of
10.
Yeah, they're all pretty venomous. Depends how much they like you.
So the Heart Morass, we've talked about, there's a river right here, the Latrobe River.
Yep.
And on the southern border is the Dowd Morass.
On the other side of the Latrobe River, on the south side of the Latrobe River is Dowd's Morass.
Which is public land.
Yep.
How long has that been in the public domain to hunt?
Well, 70s. I'm just trying to think.
Were you hunting that in the 70s?
Yeah, yes, I was, yeah.
But you weren't hunting the heart?
No, I was hunting the heart in the 70s, and before that, I'm 72 years of age, and I've got to work the time frame out. I always remember 75 was a brilliant year here.
Okay.
Absolutely brilliant.
It was one of those, what you were saying earlier, ducks in Victoria specifically is a boom bust.
Boom bust cycle.
Okay.
Yeah, it
Tell me more about that.
Well, it's based on floodwater, and it can be what the water conditions are like inland, in as much as the inland swamps of Australia have massive breeding when they flood. And then eventually those inland swamps dry up and they come south. Now, if we've got good water in all of Victoria, we have generally a very good season right across the state. 75, we'd come out of, I think, 2 or 3 floods in a row down here. There'd been phenomenal breeding. And it was just, the coastal lake, Lake Reeve was full, Jack Smith's Lake were full. They're phenomenal wetlands with phenomenal carrying capacity of water birds, particularly ducks. And 75 here, I remember in the Heart, like you could knock off after work, come down, and as long as you had the permission from the owner, you came down, walked out along one of the fence lines and would shoot your bag, 10 birds, no worries at all. And if you chose not to go the next night, well, you went the next morning, you do exactly the same thing.
And are you, at that point, how are you hunting them? Is it just like flyby shooting, or you decoying them in?
Had decoys, but here that year it was flyby. They were just moving up and down the wetland all the time, and they would decoy if you'd let them, but you didn't have to because there was just that many birds here.
Is there a strong decoying culture here? Like, is that what happened from
absolutely
day one? Like, people were using decoys?
Decoys, yes. Historically, decoys and marked hide positions is very strong in
What's marked hide?
Oh, well, that's a marked hide where
marked hides. That's right. Okay.
Somebody will construct a hide and put their name on it, and that's where they're going to shoot opening. Or it may not even be that. It could be just a point of cane reed, or that's where I'm going to shoot, and they put a sign up, and that's so other hunters know there's going to be somebody there, and using that with decoys.
Looks like you've got like a little...
Oh, yeah, he won't eat much.
Little spider or something. There, you got him.
The early decoys were made out of, in my time, were made out of cork, generally cork, and hunters would take their heads and wings from the previous year, soak them in formalin, and then they would wire those or stake those down to a shaped cork, and that was their decoys. And there's still even a few around who do it. I know of a couple. And they even had boxes where we just lump our decoys around in bags. They had boxes where they were individually put into so that you could protect them. So decoys were very strong. Some palm fronds were used. Later on, it was polystyrene when that became more available. That they were still that were home-making decoys, and then along came the plastic decoys. But Gippsland was always a strong decoy area. All right, virtually, unless they were hunting dams or something, anybody hunting out on these swamps had at least half a dozen decoys. Some may have had a dozen or 15 or 20.
Gotcha.
But they had a number of decoys, and that's what they shot over.
I'm interested. I asked Lucas this question. He didn't know the answer. Why is this place called Gippsland? Do you know?
No, not off the top of my head. I'd only be guessing. I think...
It's just a very strange name.
I think it came from a governor, and I think his name was Gips.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure
that would make sense.
Yeah.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
So talk to me about this Heart Morass. We're sitting here. It's 2025 when I'm recording this podcast. It's now October. This, in 2026, this will be the 20-year anniversary of you finishing all 3 parcels, starting?
No.
Tell me a little bit about...
206, we purchased the first.
Okay, why did you decide to purchase? Give me that history.
Well, we'd always dreamed of it.
Who's we? Was it the Sale Field branch or Field and Game writ large or what?
There was at that stage there was a Gippsland Lakes catchment conservation group called Watermark, and they'd always had an interest in the Heart Morass. They had actually bought a woman out from America. I think her name from memory was Jorah Young, and she wrote a paper about. Did a research paper on the Heart Morass. It was all in private ownership there, and had a bunch of recommendations. And I really had no involvement. I was a paid-up member, but that was about it. And they had talking with a few people involved with them that they were, would have minded getting their hands on something. Anyway,
and were the Watermark people hunters?
No, not at all. And unfortunately, Watermark have disbanded now and gone into recess. Anyway, the private landholders were having trouble with salinity coming in from the State Game Reserve down the bottom. There'd been a number of meetings convened between the private landholders.
Because it's so close to being, it's so close to a tidal system.
Yes,
Yeah.
It gets a tidal influence from the Gippsland Lakes. And one of the landholders rang me one night to talk about something, and he was getting quite irate about, what was happening to his land, and he was telling me that he'd had agronomists in, and he said that the agronomist had said the salinity was off the scales that they use.
It wasn't even measured. He couldn't even measure it. It was so high.
Anyway, and he made the comment to me offhand, "Oh, nobody'd ever want to buy it." And I said, "Well, yeah, somebody might." And he said, "Who?" And I said, "Field and Game might." Oh, so that was probably the catalyst to get us to look further at it. He and his brothers had a bit of a connection to Field and Game because the Sale branch had been managing the shooting here. We'd actually been managing, and they were hunters were paying for a key to access the property during the hunting season. So we'd been doing that for, I think, 3 years for them. Anyway, I don't know where it came from there, but that was, I think, from my memory. And they intimated that they would be potentially interested in selling. So there was a connection between ourselves, that is Field and Game Australia, Watermark, and the West Gippsland Catchment Management Authority, which is a government statutory body. Somehow we got together and had a number of meetings, and then decided, and Watermark were able to introduce us to a number of philanthropic trusts that may have been able to help us financially. Fortunately, the Hugh D. Williamson Foundation saw fit to back us.
All the other foundations looked at you.
They listened, but...
And then they were like, well, you're a hunter, and hunting...
No, I wasn't involved in those meetings, but I spoke to people that were in the meetings, and they said, look, the first thing they said was, look, if hunting's an issue, we won't bother going any further.
Okay.
That is not negotiable in this whole scheme of things.
Yeah.
And fortunately, the Williamson Foundation, who had a strong connection to Watermark, saw fit to listen to us and put a proposal to them. Watermark were able to put up $500,000 as a grant to us. The association was able to raise $700,000 out of consolidated funds, branches and individual members. So
that's how it started.
That's how it basically
What was the
started.
original? The first parcel was 1,900 acres?
1,980 acres basically in the first parcel.
But didn't that whole first parcel set up like they were like, oh wow, we've got one person interested, maybe there's a lot of other people that could be interested, so we'll make a big deal of this, and we think it's valued at $7 million.
Well, basically, yes. We offered them $1 million and they laughed at us. So it went to, and rightly so, probably.
Sure, of course.
And then some time after that, it crops up that the property is up for auction. At auction, it was just prior to Christmas, I remember that much, whatever year it was. And it went to auction. They failed to get a bid. They had a vendor's bid of about $4 million, I think.
What's a vendor's bid?
Well, that's where the seller can put a bid to start the...
that was their bid.
Yep.
Their
bid. Anyway, they failed to get a bid. The group of us that were there representing all three organisations, they said, look, if anybody's interested, we'd like to talk. So we stepped up to speak to them. And
well, to get to that point, you said you're wasting your time. Everyone leave.
Right.
Come on, this is four. You want 4.5.
No,
we're wasting our time.
The vendor said, the auctioneer said, they're looking to realise $7.7 million. So we said, wasting our time. That was the end of it. We went back to the local agent and said, look, we have $1.2 million. That's all we got. Don't come back and ask for 1.5. We have not got it. We got 1.2. And fortunate for us, the family involved, after a couple of weeks, come back and said, we'll take it.
That was the first 1,900, and since you've bought
770 acres from the second property owner and 550 acres from the third property owner.
And so we've got a restoration project now, a wetland restoration. You own a wetland
Yep.
that now needs to be restored.
Yep.
Total acreage 32 to 3,400,
Something in that.
something in that range.
Yep.
So what do you do? Like you've now got this. What you're like? Okay, I've seen the photos. You've got them all over here. The barren landscape. Not a tree to be seen. The only trees were the big trees that are around here that have been here for 200 years.
Well, we planted 66,400 recently, 66,000 trees on the property.
Who paid for that?
Basically catchment management.
Okay.
Provided most of the trees. Some we purchased ourselves, but catchment management in the project, we're not able to put any money into land purchase.
Okay.
Their charter did not allow for that, but they could assist us with advice, with trees,
water control structures.
Yeah, well, that's come later on. They assisted us with technical staff to write the management plan. We had numerous meetings prior to anything happening. They provided the trees. We planted them. Some trees have been planted by some contractors under catchment management, and then we've had, on a couple of occasions, Bug Blitz, another organisation involved with us. They've had school kids down here planting as well. Basically, we just kept planting and experimenting with where we could plant. We had a couple of disasters, but that was to be expected.
But that was learning, right?
It was learning, and the other big thing with trees is once the stock were gone, anything that was here got the right conditions, had a chance to germinate and survive. Like that tree over there that's grown up out of that stump.
Yeah.
They've got they've had the chance to get their head above ground and survive.
Oh, I'm about to sneeze again. Did you look at this place now, 20 years on, and you were the one of the people that took a first step in this place 20 years ago. Did you have in your brain what it would look like today?
No. I didn't. No, I had nothing in my brain as to about what it looked like. It was just about...
Is this what the Dowd looks like? Let me ask this, because the Dowd was obviously...
Well, Dowds to me is... and I saw that Dowds from the very early days, and I've watched it, to me, in a lot of cases, regress. I've been involved in tree planting over there and water control structures, all stuff that we did as field and game people. But unfortunately, a lot of the state game reserves have been let go through lack of funding, and I'm not. This comment is not aimed at Parks Victoria, who are the managers, not aimed at their staff. It is the fact that the government...
They're constrained. They're constrained by budget.
Yeah, underfunded. Simple. And ridiculous the amount of land that they've got to look after with the amount of money that they get in their annual budget. So a lot of, Dowds has become overgrown. The feeding edges, which I've always been adamant need to be maintained, and that is the birds have got to be able to feed in shallow water. It doesn't matter whether they're ducks or anything. They want shallow water with clear margins.
Yep.
And what's happened over there, the cane reeds have taken over and they've grown to the water's edge, and now they're out in the water. So you get out of the cane reeds and you're in a foot or 18 inches of water, which is not good feeding depth for birds in a lot of cases. And what lives in the canes are the predators, right? So... and that's whether it's foxes or cats or whatever. The predators are in the reeds, so the birds tend to stay away from it. They've just got overgrown. And even to the weeds have taken over in a lot of cases, some bad weeds in what I class as like boxthorn and blackberries and thistles and stuff like that, because they just haven't got the money to control it. Their tracks are, although again, Dow's Morass have done a bit of work in recent times, but they are getting in shocking states. And some of these other state game reserves, you just can't even get around it.
Well, I think that's the thing that I've sort of hit me the most. And I get that somebody in the government would see it as, oh, you're pointing a finger at us and it's showing that we're not doing, quote unquote, our job. And that's not the case here. The case is it's completely budget constrained. I think they would do the work if the budget was there.
Yep.
And so there's examples all around the world. This is obviously not a public partnership in the Heart Morass, but there's examples all over the world that is a public-private partnership. Like, that's how it works. There's budget constraints all over the world, but there are areas, America being one of them, that the government realizes we don't have the money. We don't have the money to implement water control structures. We don't have the money to plant trees. We don't have the money to maintain tracks. We don't have money to do all of this kind of stuff. Oh, but there's an NGO, the private side, that wants to help, that wants to go fundraise, who can access different money than we can. Okay, let's build a public-private partnership, and we all win.
And that would be great here, as long as the government side of it doesn't hold them back.
Right.
Australia's over-regulated, and I just see too many things that the government just hold back as well, because they're unsure. I've always had the attitude here, I'd rather have tried and failed than done nothing. And the first thing that happens with most of the government stuff, we'll get some consultants in. Well, I don't have a very high opinion of consultants, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Because I've been involved in things that they've had influence on, and their influence is wrong. Their reports are wrong, and they charge a fortune for it. And you would, if it was to be an NGO and government joint partnership, there'd need to be some clear guidelines. Otherwise, the NGOs would walk away very quickly.
Yeah, because they'd bring the bureaucracy, right?
Yep, bureaucracy.
The typical way that it works is the private partner, the public component to the public-private partnership is expertise. There's great expertise in the government. There's also, they own the land, so they're the owners. But the private partnership really brings the money and brings the ability to operate in a non-bureaucratic environment.
One of the classics, I'll give you a classic example here. All these reserves here, Parks Victoria will not have a bar of cattle grazing. Will not accept it. And we've been through some horrendous times of bushfires where farmers are desperate for grazing country and that sort of stuff after a bushfire. And there's the classic one's a massive reserve south of here, Jack Smith's Lake. It was farming land, and suggestions put forward that, well, righto, why don't we put some of this stock on here to keep them going while they get over the bushfire. We will not have a bar of it, and that was one of the main things here, that this property is going to be grazed, and it's in part of our management plan. It's part of controlling the vegetation, opening areas up, stopping vegetation taking over, such as cane reeds on the edges, all that sort of stuff. And to me, that's one of the big problems.
And you've seen it work, yeah?
Yeah, that's right. And one of the classic, the third property, we have a boundary with the State Game Reserve. And I always used to say to people down there, the property that we bought was grazed off edges, and then there was a fence line, and there was the State Game Reserve. Same system, but from that fence line on was solid tea tree and cane reeds all the way around the edge. And I used to say to anybody that listened, you tell me why all the birds are sitting on this private land along here and not sitting in the State Game Reserve where and it was because of grading. There was grazed off edges. There was
Mm.
feeding habitat for birds.
Does it still look like that today?
Yes, it does to a degree. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Well, we're maintaining the vegetation so it doesn't take over like that. Yes, we want a bit of tea tree. Yes, we want.
Yeah,
some
but the
reed.
line is still there, right?
Oh yeah, the line's still there. Yeah.
And they still don't graze on that side?
There's no grazing. No. No. Well, government policies they just won't graze.
Mm.
And to me, that's it's part of it. Yes, we didn't graze here for probably 12 or 14 years before we put any stock on. The stock were controlled, electric fencing. We only grazed certain areas. And we're grazing a bit more now, depending on what's happening. But,
You're not seeing any environmental degradation as a result of your grazing?
The trees are up to enough where they would withstand anything that a cow might do or something like that. We don't have bulls, we don't have bullocks. We temper what type of stock we've got in here. We control that. But it's an integral part of managing this place.
Mm.
Is the grazing. Outside of that, it gives us also an income, a small income to keep managing the property in a gist. All that would make it difficult in this state to work with the government departments unless they change their policy.
Yeah, because right now, as we talked about today, in the last 20 years, and maybe it hasn't been the whole 20 years, but you've gone from the state of dereliction to putting massive efforts to restore, to get it to a point. And now it's not restoration anymore.
It's maintaining.
It's maintaining and managing.
Managing, yep.
Right? It's like, okay, it's not like we restored it to a point and we're like, good, hands off, we walk away.
No.
As a lot of people here in Victoria, all around the world, are advocating for a hands-off approach.
National park approach, no way.
Not going to work.
No.
Because what would happen here if you just walked away?
You give it 2 years and it'd be a jungle.
Mm.
Would be a jungle. And, we spoke about trees. In certain places, we're now removing trees, getting rid of them because it's just too much. They're too dense.
Too dense.
Yeah. And
there is such a thing as too dense.
Yep, it is. So it's management. And weekly we'd be down here spraying, just keeping certain weeds, and every flood brings another crop of weeds, a different crop of weeds,
sure.
Right? And we've got to deal with them. Not that we get floods but whenever after a flood, the first thing you get after flood is flood debris.
Mm.
All sorts of rubbish comes down the river in the flood, so you can spend 3 or 4 weeks just driving around picking up all that stuff. And then, the other thing is weeds. After a flood.
Thistles.
Thistles and...
Why don't you guys like blackberries here? I was very surprised.
Well, they're a weed.
Actually,
we
they're not native.
No, they're not.
See, that was when I was in South Australia. I was walking somebody's property, and he was talking about look at these deer trails and whatnots, and this whole little riverine area was covered in blackberries.
Yeah.
And immediately, from my perspective in America, blackberries are native.
Yep.
They're good. Like that's what you want. They create some security cover and whatnot. And he was like, "Oh, this place will look so much better when this is all gone." In my brain, I was like, "Why would you say that? Like, don't you want to keep the blackberries?"
People pick wild blackberries to make jam and pies and all sorts of stuff, but they are a weed, and a weed that needs to be controlled. And I must admit, I'm a little bit loath to control them right on the riverbank because the Latrobe River is suffering from erosion, particularly on our side, and because it's a sharper bank, and
you want to maintain that cover.
Yeah,
for sure, 100%.
Bit of blackberry there quite often, just it'll protect the bank, a few won't hurt, but on the main of the property, it's a game blackberry that sticks its head up when I'm around. We had a lot of boxthorn here when we started. That's rarely do you ever see any boxthorn there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Pud, as we wrap this up, do you have any visions for, what you want this to look like in 20 years, or what you want Field and Game to be like in 20 years, or what you want hunting to be like in 20 years?
Well, in 20 years' time, I won't be here, I can assure you of that. Yes, I want to see...
If you are, I'm going to wheel you out of a wheelchair and let you shoot a duck here, okay?
Yes, I want to see duck hunting continue. It's good, wild, healthy food. It's a good pursuit. It's family orientated. The opening weekend with, in the group that I shoot with, there's 2 and 3 generations of family there. It's fantastic to get together, and shooting a duck or two is just a bonus on top. And to me, the real hunting comes after the opening, but it's fantastic. So yes, hunting got to stay for sure. Yes, we're going to have to fight for wetlands because water's getting... Australia is regarded as the driest continent. Water is scarce on this continent and needs to be used wisely, and I'm very concerned about what they're going to do to fill these open-cut mines that they've got to do something with as they decommission the power stations. And I'm totally opposed to water going in, but I am a realist and understand, well, that's probably the only thing they can do, otherwise they're going to collapse. So as long as it can be maintained in this state, I would be happy. I don't think it has to be any better than what it is, but it's got to be maintained, and that's what I would hate to see, that I get to a stage where I can't and nurture other people into it, that the property is let go. And, I'd like to see more effort put into these state game reserves to get them into a more user-friendly state. There's a lot of issues that face wetlands and hunters, but back to what I said. You've got to conserve to hunt, and to conserve you've got to have habitat. You must have habitat. Get the habitat right, and the game comes along and everything else. But if you haven't got the habitat, you've got nothing to hunt.
And I'll add one thing to that. If you had to ask Georgie Purcell, maybe not Georgie, but people of that ilk, if you took hunting out of the conversation and you said to them, what's the most important thing, the most fundamental thing that you need for wildlife to survive and thrive in today's world?
If I had to say that to Georgie or somebody of her,
what's the answer?
Well, the answer is habitat.
Answer's habitat.
Habitat.
And they would say the same thing.
Yep.
They would say the same thing. If they were truly connected to what is needed for wildlife to survive and thrive, they would say habitat. And all of a sudden, we're singing off the same sheet of music.
There is plenty of people who are conservationists who would say that, but somebody of Georgie Purcell's ilk, no, they are... Their mantra is a little bit different. They don't care about the habitat. They only care about the animal. They do not care about the habitat. They don't understand that connection between habitat and wildlife. Yes, they want to maintain the wildlife, but there's a load of carp going out. Yes, they want to protect animals, but in their eyes, if they starve to death, well, so be it. That's natural.
Pretty sad state of affairs, huh?
It is, yeah. Yeah, it is. Anyway.
Well, Pud, it's been my absolute honor and pleasure to meet you, get to know you. I know you got to know me before you actually met me face to face, given the fact that I came into your town and put a billboard up.
That's our job.
stirred the pot a little bit.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you, and I look forward to doing much more with you. And if there's anything that we can ever do to help from halfway around the world,
Yep.
you know that we are there and ready.
Now, I've got to say on behalf of hunters that we really appreciate the work and the effort that you and your organisation put in to hunting around the world, to bring it to top of mind, to make people understand that we're just harvesting animals for food. Good, healthy, free-range food. That's what it's all about. And it's a lifestyle.
And the habitat.
Yep, and the habitat. If you want to do that harvesting, you've got to have the habitat. That's what it's about.
100%. Thanks, Pud.
Thank you, mate.